Go to TAPgiles.com to learn dreams, engage my services, and support the channel. It also comes with circle going into depossess. So by default, if you possess an object, then you'll just be possessing it unless you press circle, and now you're not possessing it anymore. But if that wire wasn't there, then you could possess it, but now when I press circle, nothing happens because there's no link from the circle button to the depossess signal input. Similarly, you could wire that into any other button, or you could have a signal from the outside going into depossess to make the player not possess that object anymore. So now we've got it on triangle. So circle won't do anything, but triangle will pop out the imp, and now we're not possessing it. But even while you're not possessing an object, if it's possessable, then the camera will sort of orbit around it. And if we rewind, it orbits around this character, because that was the first one placed, something like that. So now we're orbiting around that character. But if we go into here, now we're orbiting around here, and when we depossess, we're still orbiting around here, because it assumes that's probably the most likely place you'll want to possess again. However, something to be careful of is if I just make a quick bit of logic to destroy that object after some time, then I could possess it and orbit around it and stuff, but when it gets destroyed, that controller sensor no longer exists, so the imp pops out. But then I start orbiting around another, closest possessable object in the scene, which means if this is just an NPC, just a non-playable character in your scene that you don't want the player to be possessing and playing as, your camera might zoom across the scene when you die until we get respawned, which isn't what you want to happen. So in that case, we can go into the controller sensor and say, instead of the possession mode being possessable, we can say none. And now all the logic and stuff still works for it, but you can't actually possess it. And so it won't say, oh, I'll go and orbit around that one. So now when we start off orbiting around the cube. If I just rewind and possess the cube, when this cube gets destroyed, we won't suddenly zoom around to this other object, this other character. We'll just be in free cam mode because there's no possessable object in the scene, and we can move however we want. There are other possession modes while we're there. So there's none, which means it's not possessable at all. There's possessable, which means you can use R2 on it to possess it. There's follow imp, which means when we possess it, it will be moving around as if it's stuck to the imp. And you can rotate it and stuff like that, and it'll move with the primary move controller if you have those set up. Another one is remote controllable. Now this one means it's not possessable at all. I can't use R2 on it at all. But other signals coming out of here, so if I just play time and I press buttons, so X lights up and that's sending a signal and things like that, even though I'm not possessing it. So this is good for menus and UI and things like that, where you don't really need to possess the object. You just want to get those signals from the player's controller. While you're on possessable or follow imp, you can even turn on force possession. So now when I go to play mode, I don't even have an imp. I'm just automatically possessing this object. And at the moment that object doesn't do anything, so it might not be very clear what's going on. So let's make that no possession, and then have us force possession with the puppet. So possessable, force possession, go into play mode, and now I'm running around with it without needing to possess it with my imp. It's just automatically possessed. So you can call it auto possess. There's also these player buttons. So if you've got multiple players and you want the player 1 to possess one specific character and player 2 to possess a different character, you can say only player 1 is allowed to possess this controller sensor and this object, or only player 2 is allowed, or you can allow 3 and 4, or whatever combination you want. If none of these are on, then you won't be able to possess it at all. So when you go into play mode, now it's possessible technically, but no players are allowed to possess it, which makes it a bit dumb. So let's just turn that back on. When you're in follow imp mode, it has a follow imp behavior, and I've got other tutorials about the follow imp going into a lot more detail. Thanks for watching. I hope you learned something interesting. Go to patreon.com/TAPgiles to learn something new every day.